Hi. Wow. Whew. This is my first video about being the adult child of a borderline, and I'm really excited to talk. I have so much to say. Oh, gosh. Anyway, as I'm sure you guys all do too. And so let me tell you a little bit about me. And what I want to talk about is how I figured out that my mom is a borderline. So I remember growing up until I was probably like 12, well, like 8, probably about 8 years old. I thought everything was okay with my family. I think I grew up like a pretty happy kid, a little moody, a little high, a little independent, a little, definitely had high standards for myself. Guess that's just how I've always rolled. Anyway, but yeah, up until like 8, from what I remember my dad explaining to me was that I was mom's little best friend, which of course, that's already not a healthy thing. Anyway, then probably 9 to 12 years old, I started going through some tough stuff, because I was already dealing with like being unhealthy, not being not being socially adjusted well, and all that kind of fun stuff that comes from having a mom that's got some serious emotional issues and stuff. Anyway, then adolescence came. Yay! That's fun times. I, once around 12 hit, I was like, something's wrong. Like, something's wrong with my family. And I am a highly sensitive person. I'm very intuitive. And so I'm pretty sure by 12, like, something in my gut was like, something's not right with my family. And I know it's got a lot to do with my mom, but I don't know what it is because I'm 12, so. And I remember by like 13 or 14 years old, very specifically, my mother had this huge blowout with my dad. I left the house. I just couldn't handle it. And I remember two things that really scared the crap out of me. The first one was thinking, I wish my parents would get a divorce because my dad deserves to be treated so much better. And the second one was, I don't think my parents love me. And I remember just being terrified about that when I was a teenager, So anyway, and then my teenage years were, I won't get into it, but it was just hellish. It was a really awful time. Because as a highly sensitive child, oh my gosh, with a borderline mother, holy shit, of course it's not going to go well. Oh, it didn't. I, at one point was actually suicidal, and to which my mom replied, well, go ahead and do it. And, I guess she thought to try reverse psychology on me. I don't know. It obviously made the situation worse. I asked for therapy at 17, and they said no, they couldn't afford it. And just awful moments for sure, throughout my teenage years. Very, very painful, very scarring times. And then, like, so at 18, I moved out of the house, moved out of state, and that's when I really started my whole journey of like going, what the heck is going on? And you have to understand too, at this point, this was back in the late 90s, so internet wasn't really around much, or things like that, which was definitely kind of a challenge. And so figuring out like what was wrong with my parents was just not something easy. My parents married, still married, actually. So that'll be another video. Anyway, but yeah, I realized like at 18 is when I really started my search. My search for two things. One, what the hell is wrong with my family? And two, what the hell is wrong with me? You know, and so that's really what I spent like the last 20 years doing, is working on those two questions and figuring them out, which has been really, really, of course, long ongoing, but it's been really, really, really good. So anyway, so moving forward, you know, what's really difficult is when you start talking to people about what's wrong with your parents, they really shy away from telling you straight, you know, like and of course they don't know, and it's always challenging, and I'm sure you get this too, because like, you know, people on the outside, they don't know what it's like, they don't get it, you know. I grew up with parents who actually did foster parenting, so they looked like they were like the model citizens, and people just didn't understand why I had such hang-ups about them when they're like, look at them, they're saints. And I'm like, not behind closed doors. They're not. So, yeah, I think there was a really tough challenge. And I get it. I mean, you know, to say, hey, look, your mom and dad might have some serious shit going on in their personalities. It's just not something you really want to say much to someone. So anyway, so I was in college. I got my minor in psychology, and I really wanted to study, really want to understand like what was wrong, you know, and stuff. And I couldn't quite process it all by that at that age anyway, what was going on with my family. Um, so anyway, so instead, and at this point too, I was still so wounded and so hurt and so programmed because of the way my mom treated me. I really focused instead on more figuring out like what's wrong with me. Like, why am I such a mess? Why am I such a screw up? Why am I so not enough for her? Or what is it? Because I know that there's something innately wrong with me. Something in my DNA is like, you know, like, yeah, she's a normal, healthy, you know, woman who, but yet in this DNA, there's something in her that's emotionally completely fucked up, you know, and oh my gosh. Anyway, so I really truly believed that. So I spent years just trying to figure out what the hell was wrong with me, and or wallow in what was wrong with me, or you know, and I dealt with depression and things like that. So anyway, fast forward to um 33. I'm 33 years old. Yeah, I'm 33 years old. And one of the things that actually happened for me is, and this could definitely be another video series as well, was I had a late, well, no, it's not true. I always struggled with food. Food was my emotional expression and thing, you know, which was awesome. And so from like 11 years old, I started binge eating to comfort myself. And so food was love. Um, and then when I was 25, I actually started actually having an eating disorder. I was bulimic. And so, oh, it's not good. So at 33, I was still struggling with it, and I was like, you know, I got to deal with this. You know, I've tried other ways of dealing with it, like religion, prayer, you know, and I'm like, it's just not working. So that's when I actually hired a therapist. I'd been in therapy off and on, but this was the first time when I was like, I'm gonna go for this, and I'm gonna go like into this and be committed for a while to figure this out. So I got a specialist in eating disorder, and so like literally for the first year and a half, my eating disorder actually got worse than better, because we were just bringing everything up to the surface, everything, you know. And so really for like the first year and a half, I just cried and was just bitter as hell about my family, like just bitter, bitter about my mom, and just needed to get it all out. And it really, I truly think like the heart is, it's like your back needing a massage. Like you got to get the knots out, man. You just got to work it, and you got to work through the pain, and eventually it does release, and eventually it does give, you know. And so during that year and a half, that first year and a half that I was in therapy, that's when I figured out enough about myself, learned to love myself enough to go, it's time to really look at your family, April, and not just keep looking at what's wrong with you. Like, you know, you grew up in this family, you've got a lot of pain, you got a lot of anger. It's time to give yourself permission to really look square at your mom and see what she's got and see what's going on. So, excuse me. So I started doing research online and figured out, or suspected, that she might be a borderline. And so I picked up from the library a couple of books. And the one that just floored me, the one that changed my life, was How to Deal with Your Borderline Mother. And what's really cool about the book is they talk about different types of different types of ways that the borderline kind of manifests in a mother. And there's 4 types, and you really need to pick up the book if you haven't, and you're got any questioning about whether or not your parent is a borderline, because it's so helpful. Anyway, and so among the 4 types, there's the witch, the queen, the hermit, and the waif. And so the queen, it's like the Alice in Wonderland queen, like off with her head, you know. The witch, it's kind of like the witch in Wizard of Oz, the mentality of I will get you, my pretty, you know. That's how the borderline manifests there. Then there's the hermit, which is the, oh, if I just shut myself away from the world, I will get the people who really love me will come and take care of me and be there for me. And then the last one is the waif, and the waif is the martyr, the victim, the, oh, I am a victim to the world, and so everyone, you know, must love me and forgive my bad behavior because, you know, I'm just a victim. And anyway, so I was shocked when I realized that my mother was totally the waif with a sprinkling of the witch. Yay! Yeah, because the witch can actually be in any of the other ones. You can have a combination of the different types and stuff like that. Anyway, read the book. Don't take everything I'm saying as gospel in any way or form, you know, because again, I am not a therapist. I am just someone who has gone through therapy a lot about this and sharing my story. So anyway, so the chapter on the waif, what really got to me about it was discovering that one of the ways that, besides all the basics, you know, with a borderline, which is the whole black and whiting your children. One is good, one is bad. I was definitely on the bad. It's amazing. My brothers, I'm the oldest of a few brothers, and yeah, my brothers have done some serious stuff. Like, they've done some pretty screwed up stuff. But out of anyone, my mom has said, I'm the most rebellious. I'm like, wait, the one who went to college and grad school and, you know, has held down a job longer than anybody else, and I'm the one that's the most rebellious. But of course, because I didn't give her the love and support that she expected from birthing a child. And that's what the whole point was. I was birthed to make her feel good. And the fact that I didn't do that, the fact that I was independent and I was, you know, strong, and I knew something was off with us right pretty early on and reacted to that and put up boundaries. I'm just the walking heartbreak for her, so yay for being the bad child. It's so fun. Anyway, and so yeah, there was those typical characteristics. I remember, it's crazy. In a list of like 15, my mom usually will hit 12 of the 15. So so anyway, so I realized through research, like, she actually had it pretty bad. And the other thing too, that was also an indicator was apparently my mom back in the day had done research about my grandmother, wondering how my grandmother was and what was wrong with her, because I knew my grandmother and her had a horrible relationship. I mean, I listened to it for years on the phone, and my mom would stop talking to my grandmother for months at a time. And I remember my mom saying, "I think your grandmother's borderline." So I knew that there was something that was going through the family for sure. Anyway, and then reading how to deal with your borderline mother, I read like how to, I read about borderline and the emotional manipulation, the shame, the whole programming thing. I mean, how can you not be like irate when you discover that like actually you've been programmed your whole life to not believe in yourself, to only believe in what she has to say? Gosh, it just kills you. Anyway, and so then you're so disconnected from yourself. You're disconnected from what you believe. You disconnect. You don't trust yourself. And you are the only thing that you really have, like, in this world. Like, you're the only thing you really have, the only thing you really are responsible for, the only thing you can really control, and the only thing you can really trust often is yourself. So to lose that is just devastating. Um, anyway, but the thing about that book that really was like, oh, this is totally something from the universe saying, April, this is it, was the fact that waifs, because they see themselves as victims in the world and victims in the world, they surround themselves with other victims. And so it's very common for waifs to adopt a bunch of kids at the same time, and to have like foster kids and have a house full of them. And that is totally how I grew up. It was crazy. It really was. I mean, it was great in so many ways. Don't get me wrong. I think foster parenting is one of the bravest, strongest things you can ever do. I think it's one of the most rewarding things you can ever do. I love my adopted siblings. They're amazing people, and I love them with all of my heart. It was just fascinating to think though that like this was but the way my mom reacted to them versus how she reacted to like me, at times, like she loved being surrounded by other victims in her mind, and stuff. And just how the whole thing played in our family, like, because something else that's very true to waifs is they end up usually getting a lot of health issues. They usually have a lot of health issues. My mom's got lupus. She's got fibromyalgia. She's got something else. There's like a cancer scare every year with her and stuff like that. And I don't think she's faking, but it's interesting how, like, because she shut down her own emotions and stuff, how I truly think that it manifests through the physical crap. And this physical stuff is happening to her. Anyway, and so that's a huge part of why everyone gives her so much grace, because she's the suffering mother with the huge heart who's taking care of all of these kids and going through all this physical pain, and so of course, like, you can't not love her. If you can't love her, then there's something completely wrong with you, because look at what a martyr she is, and anyway, and she used that and she milked that in our family. And even now my dad is just like, oh, she's just going through so much, like, you need to give her more grace. I'm like, I can't give her more grace, Dad. Like, I can't. Her being in pain is no license to be emotionally abusive to her kids. That's just not okay. So anyway, so the book was amazing for me because it really helped me start to put two and two together, and then I started to pick up skills on how to be able to actually like deal with her and start to kind of do things like shadow, like, just focus on how she's feeling bad. She's feeling bad. Oh, I'm sorry, you're so feeling bad. And that would give her that validation and make her feel, okay, good, good. Like I'm getting the attention I need, and I'm feeling loved. And it's like, okay, good, and then that way she would be more calm. She wouldn't take her crap out on me so much. But, that witch in her is the rager, for sure. She definitely will rage, and it's horrible and it's absolutely destructive, and stuff. So I ended up eventually, for me, and I will explain this more in more videos, I decided to actually, my battery's about to die on my computer. Anyway, but I ended up having to separate myself from them, and by far the best decision one of the biggest and best decisions I ever made. So I will explain more of that in coming videos and stuff, but this is my first. So I hope this was helpful. Just know that you are so not alone, and that you also don't need to be, let's just make this clear too, you do not need to be a victim of a borderline. That's my big thing, and that's my theme for this whole channel. I want people to understand that they don't have to be a victim of their borderline mother, that you can reclaim yourself, you can find peace, and you can move forward with health and dignity and live the life that you've always wanted to live. So anyway, I hope this helps. Take care.